Hello. Welcome to Modest Mash Macros. This is the first video of this channel in which I will be presenting the macros that I use when I play World of Warcraft. It's also my first recording on YouTube videos, so please forgive any noobness or mistakes. You're looking at Thori in bear form. She's my first level 100 in World of Warcraft. I've only had the latest expansion for a few weeks, so she's my only level 100 at the moment. She's normally a resto druid, but I will be using her in guardian form today because the macros are much easier to explain for the guardian than for the resto druid. First of all, why macros? Well, with fewer clicks you can perform many more actions than if you didn't use macros. To give an example, I'm going to buffer with Mark of the Wild right now. So I press Alt and you can see that the icon in the action bar has switched to Mark of the Wild, and when I click on 0, not only does she get the buff for Mark of the Wild, you will notice that she also got the buff for Whispers of Insanity, which is from an item in Thori's bag. So I've performed both buffs with a single click. You could also have a macro that puts Barkskin, uses a health stone, sets up a battle standard, uses a trinket, and a gear item in the bag, all with one click, all at the same time. So macros are very efficient. So why mash? Well, you can have a rotation that's a just-in-time rotation. For example, if you use Mangle, which has a 6-second cooldown, or Maul, which has a 3-second cooldown, you could have a rotation of 2 Mauls for every Mangle. But because Mangle can be reset by last raid at any moment, and Maul has a 20 raid requirement, you can't predict that the timing of 2 to 1 will always be correct. With a macro set up as here, you can have Mangle used anytime it's available, and if it's not available, then it will use Maul whenever it's available, and only if it's not available will it do nothing. You will notice in the macro here, the first line switches Thori to bear form, and the last line switches the action bar from 1 to 2. This refers to the action bar number that we have down here. World of Warcraft has 6, so you can scroll through all of them and have different macros put into the different slots of the action bar. So when I click on the macro G21, which is here, all I have to do is click on the number 2, and not only will Thori attempt to do a Mangle if it's available, or a Maul if Mangle was not available, it will also switch. She will also switch to the next action bar. So she turned into bear, and the action bar switched to number 2. So if I click that macro again, number 2, you'll see it switches right back to number 1. So you can mash macros, and they will do just-in-time spells as soon as they're available in the priorities that I've set up in the macros, which allows you to continue to mash that macro, keeping your eyes on what's going on without having to worry about whether a spell is available or not before you click on it. Before I go into showing you how these macros work and how I use them, let me show you the talents, because that affects which spells you have available for the macros. I don't always choose the spell, the talent that seems the most powerful. I choose the one that seems the easiest to include in a mash macro, because that's the use I will be using. I will be considering the talent for. I've chosen Feline Swiftness, Ysera's Gift, Typhoon, Soul of the Forest, Mighty Bash, Dream of Cenarion, and Pulverize. Some of these talents I've chosen for BGs, others for dungeon, and others for questing, but in every case I have chosen the one that I think is easiest to implement in a mash macro. Well, I won't go into the details of why I chose each one of these right now, but in the comment section that can be discussed. Also the glyphs, looking at the major ones, I've chosen Glyph of Maul, Barkskin, and Dash. Again, as with the talents, we can discuss these choices in the comment section as to why I chose those specifically, but the rule of thumb is I'm choosing the ones that are easiest to implement in a mash macro. So let's get to it. Let me show you how I use these macros, or at least the basic ones. I will mostly be using macro number 2, which is like the one I call Tank and Spank macro. It will attempt to do Mangle whenever it's available. If not, it will attempt to do Maul. And it will also cycle between Thrash and Lacerate, always starting with Thrash with every new target. With a good healer, I can do some dungeons just using button number 2. But if my health gets to 50% or lower, I will switch to using button number 1, which I call my heal macro, and it simply replaces the use of Maul for frenzied regeneration. My number 3 macro is the ranged aggro macro. If I see a target far away by being stuck and I can't get to melee distance, or if I need to get aggro from a particular target that's not paying attention to me, I will use number 3. Number 4 is a trigger macro. I don't mash it. What I do is I wait for it to be triggered for use, and it will use the spell that's there. In this case, you can see the icon for Healing Touch. I'm going to be switching to button number 1 now, and you'll see my health go back up. And all the rage will be used for frenzied regeneration. Button number 5 I use to interrupt. If I see a casting of a spell, or I predict a strong hit from an opponent, I will cast number 5 and interrupt them. The macro file that shows a detail of how they work will be posted under the video, and in the next video of Modest Mash Macros, I will be showing how to copy and paste this file for your own use in another character. I'm switching now to button number 1, Frenzied Regeneration. I'm going to use 5 just to show you the interrupt. And I used the War Stomp from the Druid in that case. And that is it. Shows how I use macros, and I can show them in use in other areas in a different video. If I click Alt, it will use more powerful spells. In this case, I will use Pulverize, which does more damage and brings my defense up a little bit. If I use switching to button number 1, switching targets to get aggro, using Alt 1, we'll use a health stone, we'll use a spirit item from my bag, back to macro number 2, just one to finish off in full health. I'm going to use Alt 2 again just to pulverize. And try all over. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've seen the value in using macros and mash ones at that. They're not magic. They are straightforward, very simple. They take advantage of the simultaneous use of spells, and it makes one play much better, more relaxed, being able to keep greater attention on the action that's on the screen instead of on the spells and when they're available or when to use them. So hope to see you soon in another video, or hope you come back to see me in another video. The next one will show how to transfer the file of my macros to a character of your own so that you can use and tweak the macros for your own use. Till next time, hope all is well.